Hello and welcome to Coaching State. This is episode number 7 in our series, The Subtle Art of Coaching. Today we're going to be talking about unintentional closed-ended questions. And this is actually a really important conversation for me because it's part of the conversation that started me down the path to becoming a coach. It opened up the door. In 2001, I took a job selling cars at a Chevrolet dealership, and I had a manager who would often tell me, "You ask too many closed ended questions. Go out there and ask those clients more open ended questions." And I would always ask him, "Okay, well, how do you do that? Tell me what I'm doing and tell me how to do it differently." To which he would get frustrated with me and go, just go wash the car. I'll do it myself. And so he would go and talk to my clients. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I've got to figure this out. There's something to this open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. And I started to do research. I read books, I looked around the internet, and I didn't really find a lot of great answers. There was a few answers of, what was a closed-ended question? It was yes, no. It was a factual question. It was a question where the answer was already known. And when I started to look at open-ended questions, the guidance that I found, the instruction, the lessons that I learned were very vague, extremely vague, few and far between. And it took me a long time to sort out what are the categories of open-ended questions. What are the categories of closed-ended questions? And then how to start working those in. In today's episode, we're going to focus in on unintentional closed-ended questions. These are sentence openers and ways of asking questions that often trip up coaches, trip up salespeople, and people working in different avenues with similar types of customer service, et cetera. And they often fall in. People think by using these, they're actually asking an open-ended question because of the way that they open the sentence. But what they're doing is actually closing it off. And there are times in coaching where we want to ask intentionally a closed-ended question. We might ask for confirmation. If we use today's session so you can build your confidence in public speaking, would that be a good use of our time? That's an intentionally closed-ended question. We want that confirmation. My client says something, and maybe I miss, because of a quick glitch in the internet, I missed the word that they said. Mostly, I'm not sure. I'm like, Joe, did you say confidence? Intentionally closed-ended question. When we get to commitment, any type of commitment question, Joe, you've committed today to making 4 phone calls this afternoon to the most important people on your client list. Is that correct? Again, so confirmation, commitment, there are places we want to ask those, but a vast majority of the time as coaches, we should be asking more open-ended questions. So, first off, what are some categories of closed-ended questions before we get to these unintentional ones? What are some categories of open-ended questions? The one that most everybody starts with is yes, no. Any yes, no question is obviously closed-ended. It has a binary answer. It's a yes, a no. It's a good, a bad. It's a true, a false. Anything that has the two sides of the coin and there is no middle ground. They're binary. It's one or the other. There's no scale. There's no stretch. There's no in between. There's no middle. It's all just simply one or the other. Would you like to start today or start tomorrow? It's closed ended because it's binary. We talked about confirmation and clarity style questions. Those are, where we're looking for the yes no. Those are closed ended. Any question where the answer is what I call summary data. How many people are in your department? 12. Okay, that's a closed-ended question because there's one answer. It's often a factual answer, and often the answer is known. If it's a known to the client, that would technically be a closed-ended question. So these are some really quick categories that often, coaches fall into a little bit unintentionally of making these closed-ended questions. Now, there's also 3 categories of closed-ended questions that I think these are specific to the coaching industry. So we as coaches who don't give advice, we don't tell people what to do, we draw it out from our client. There's 3 categories that I believe make questions closed-ended. And they are any question where the answer is asking for a negative. What don't you want to happen here? What don't you want to feel? What's the worst case scenario? What problems could arise? Now, some of those are valid coaching questions, but realize at the same moment that they are closed ended because they're not taking you to what the client does want. Now, if we reverse those, we flip them over, or we take them from being sort of a critical and we then, okay, how are you going to deal with this problem or challenge? How are we going to make this problem a contingency that you know what you're going to do with? Those make some good coaching questions, but realize if you're asking a negative question, technically, from my opinion, in coaching, it's closed ended. Also, closed ended questions. This is a big one in coaching specifically, is any type of past oriented question. What have you already done? Who have you already talked to? What's a time in your life when? Those are all past oriented questions. Those are knowns. You can't change the past, so it's got to be a factual data answer. It's got to be information that the client is drawing from their memory. And so that also is a closed ended question. It's fixed, it's set, it's known. And the third category that I believe is specific to coaching here too are leading questions. And we have a whole video on leading questions. You might want to go look at it there. Some leading questions. Have you thought of other people in your situation have? If I were you, and many other styles of questions, they're leading, they're narrowing the client into uh, it's pointing the client in the direction the coach wants them to go. It's a suggestion, it's advice. And I believe, therefore, those are also closed ended questions. Now, those are sort of the ones I would hope most of you be semi familiar with that would be known to you. Maybe the last three categories, being coach specific ones, aren't known to you. But I really want to spend some time on these unintentional closed ended questions. So, my first two unintentional closed ended questions, and again, a lot of coaches think, oh, well, I'm using these openers to these questions, and they're making it open-ended, even though it's a yes, no, even though it may leads to a factual answer. So the first two are is there and are there? Is there something you could do today? Any sentence that starts with is there and are there technically becomes a yes, no answer, making it closed-ended. Are there some steps you could take? Is there something you could do this week? Are there people you could talk to? And because it leads to the yes no question, it causes the client's flow to stop. They're, especially if it's a no, especially if it's a no. But their thinking is going, it's moving, you're progressing, you're working on the agenda, you're moving towards what you agreed to work on the session for, and then all of a sudden they're, well, is there something you could do this week? Yes. And then the coach has to add, well, what are those things? And so it's like putting speed bumps or flashing yellow lights. You've got to continually slow down. Now, the good news is, because most of you are sitting there going, well, if I can't ask, is there and are there questions, how do I ask that question? What do I do to make it open ended? Well, the short answer is simply take is there and are there and exclude them from your coaching. Just take it out. Are there steps you could take this week? What are the steps that you could take this week? Just go ahead and jump straight to the second question that you could have asked anyway. Is there something you can do today? What's the best thing you could do today to move the project forward? Simply ask an open ended question that doesn't have the is there and the are there on the front. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the second category, and this is a much bigger category. The good news is the explanation is the same. And the answer is even easier. The answer is delete these from your coaching. Just don't use them. And the category here is can you, could you, will you, would you, have you, should you, might you, could you. Now, I'm sure there are some other ones we could work into the different motivational style language words. Can you, could you, would you, will you? We could go in and find some more specific ones, but these are the most common ones. Can you tell me? Just ask it, tell me. Could you start tomorrow? What would happen if you started tomorrow? Would you describe what you mean by that? Describe what you mean by that. Because the would you could get a no answer. Will you? Will you start on your project this week? When are you starting on your project this week? Makes it open ended. Have you, which by the way, have you automatically is past oriented, so that makes it an automatic closed ended as well as closed ended because it's a yes or no. Have you done anything in the past month to move this forward? Should you get started on this soon? How soon can you get started on this? Would be a more open ended version of that. Might you consider, which by the way, that one usually tends to fall into the category of being a leading question as well. So again, can you, could you, would you, will you, have you, should you, might you, could you? Just simply delete all of those and your coaching sessions will have much more, many more open-ended questions inside of them. There's a third category, and this one's fairly straightforward as well. Does. It's very similar to the is there and are there. So most questions that start with does, uh, it will also automatically make it. So just simply, delete those out of your vocabulary as a coach as well and get those moving forward. Now, to bring the story to full circle here, um, when I told you that I started out in the car sales business in 2001, and this manager didn't couldn't tell me how to ask open-ended questions, and that led me down this educational line, this into the field of what ended up being coaching, and me becoming a coach just 2 years later in 2003. And what I have found, and what we teach in our level 1 and level 2 programs, there are actually 10 frames, 10 categories of open ended questions that we teach. So not only can you delete the unintentional closed ended questions, but you can combine these 10 frames into thousands of variations. Take these frames, add in your client's content, and you should be able to ask the widest variety of questions on the fly that will give your client an amazing experience that you are with them, you are listening to them, and you're constantly moving the conversation forward. You're carrying it forward. And that is going to open up the opportunity for you to have a greater impact with your clients. So I'd invite you to drop your thoughts down into the comments there, especially what do you think are some good categories? What are some good ways to ask a question that make a question more open-ended? I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you'd like to see all of our videos as they are released. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Have a great day.